on with you guys.
We're live, by the way. We're live.
So he was coming out of class.
He's coming out of class. So he did show up, though?
Jacob's just a piece of shit, man. He's just a piece of He's backstage right now, and I'm just laughing at him.
I thought we raised him better than this.
He's out here firing off a 17-tweet thread on Myles Gaskin.
He's so frustrated because he can't hop in here and talk. He's just shaking his head. All right, I'm letting him in.
I'm literally here. I've literally been here. I was here before you went live. I got here at 5:59. As everyone knows, this happens every single week. I work until 5 my time. This show goes live at 6 my time. And so I'm often tweeting from the SkyTrain because I've been working previously. So I'm like sitting on the train, firing off tweets. And then I gotta walk into my apartment, boot up, and let's roll. And I'm here. And then you guys decided to put me in a waiting room and defame me.
Well, all I know is Lord Reeves was here, and he's much more famous than you, and he found a way to be here on time.
Well, I was here on time.
No, unacceptable. You were not here on time.
God. It was here at 5:59.
I was here on time.
This show goes on at 6. If we start establishing that 5:59, or in your guys' world, I guess 8:59, is too late to show up, then I'm not sure that Shane's ever once been on time.
I don't know. He shows up here before you every week.
Yeah, because I'm pissed. I work.
This is Fantasy Intervention. Now here to intervene with your fantasy life, Shane Manila, Jakob Sanderson, and Chase Vernon.
What is up, everybody? Welcome on into Fantasy Intervention. Man, we're not just going to be... Yeah, we do have a show sheet. It's not just going to be an episode where we're going to sit here and bash Jacob the entire show because, yes, we did have to bring in Rich Hribar over here. Ooh. Rich, what's going on, man? How's your night going? What you got going on?
What's going on, guys? It's great to be back on. You know, it's funny that free agency started and kind of really nothing happened today for us. So it's kind of weird that we're not here. We don't have any news to talk about. Wherever quarterback dominoes are waiting for Deshaun Watson to fall first. We've got these veteran wide receivers aren't signing anywhere, and none of these veteran running backs have signed after James Conner either. So we're kind of all just still waiting to see what happens.
Raheem Mostert.
That's true.
He did. And this kind of happened. The same sort of thing happened last year. We were talking about it prior to the show where, you know, these teams are waiting for certain players to sign so the bar can be set as to where, you know, or what they want to pay some of these other receivers.
Not where Tim Balky said it.
Yeah, and not where Christian Kirk has the bar set. They want something more realistic. So I think that we could end up seeing something over the next few days. But yes.
Shane, what are you so upset about? You look angry, like very angry.
No. I just
caused you personal distress.
I got a lot of Trevor Lawrence, right? And this isn't the shit I needed. I didn't need Christian Kirk. I was like, all right, it's an overpay, but it's a good start. And maybe they'll draft a legitimate wide receiver 1 in the draft. And I didn't know how they were going to go about that because they drafted 1 and then 33 or whatever. So I don't know. They shouldn't have drafted a wide receiver. But I thought maybe they do some stuff and maybe end up with Traylon Burks or Drake London or Garrett Wilson. And they were like, no. Check this out. Guess who's getting Zay Jones? And that really? And Evan Ingram. I'm like,
The funny thing is they paid more for Zay than they did if they would have just kept Chark. It's the same annual value, but with extra years. It's just ridiculous.
Jacksonville is a city hates DJ Chark. That wasn't just an Urban Meyer thing. They just clearly did not want him there anymore.
Yeah, that was
maybe CJ Golson was right. They were trying to trade him to Baltimore.
This isn't a this year thing though with the cons. Since the last decade, no one spent more free agent money than the Jaguars have.
It's been about $230 million before the Raheem Mostert contract.
and with no return basically in the last decade on that. Their best players have all been basically their own draft picks.
Yeah, what was it? I think it was Warren Sharp had an article on Roto World / Edge, whatever the hell it's called now. It will always be Roto World.
It'll always be Roto World.
Yeah, talking about like the teams that have spent the most in free agency, and they're always bad. They're just always bad. The following year, the next year, because they're always because it's just the wrong way to go about it. Like you're getting someone's reject. Like as much as I'm excited that the Eagles got to sign Hassan Reddick. Sorry for the IDP defensive talk, guys. Clearly though, if Arizona really wanted him, they would have held on to him, and that's the truth in most cases, unless your quarterback is, a criminal that's forcing his way out of town.
Oh God, no, and that's kind of the crazy part that you see a lot of these teams do is like they end up overpaying for players to come to their organization in hopes that they'll slightly improve to become a sexier destination over the next 2 years. We saw it with the Browns back when they first took over with who was the GM at the time that ended up overpaying for. It might have been where he got a ton of draft picks, ended up overpaying.
Oh, that was John Dorsey.
Yeah, that wasn't Sashi.
It was John Dorsey.
Yeah, Sashi was the spiritual successor to Sam Hinkie in the process, and I'm still mad that Sashi wasn't allowed to let that play out. But anyway,
yeah. So this is where we kind of
people hated Sashi here, man. They hated him. Oh my god!
Look,
Sam Hinkie so much.
Sam Hinkie was hated so badly here, and I look at the team now, and I'm like, hey guys, you got Joel Embiid and James Harden. You know why you have those two? Because of the fucking process, you fucking dipshits.
Every time I went to my father-in-law's house, he was like, when they just can't get a football guy to run the team. And every time.
Hopefully never.
So let's go ahead and hop into the show. And I didn't know where else to start because everything is kind of all over the place outside of the Jaguars. So let's kick off this show with a little game. FMK. We're going to fuck, marry, kill Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, and Evan Ingram. So out of these players, including the contracts, the money they got, but mainly for fantasy football, which one are we fucking, which one are we marrying, and which one are we killing? We'll start it with Shane down there.
All right, I'm going to marry Christian Kirk because if I'm going to fuck someone, I want it to be Evan Ingram because I think it's going to be quick and it could be exciting, but it's not going to last. It's not. You know what I mean? Christian Kirk, I feel like it's not going to be stupendous. You know what I mean? It's going to be like 980 yards. Oh, 1,020. Oh, there's 1,100 yards back to 900. Like it's reliable. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you're telling me that it's kind of like a Marvin Jones, type of role essentially.
Well, yeah, except maybe more consistent. I think he'll be more consistent. And then I'll just kill Zay Jones because what the fuck? Come on, no, just what a waste.
Shane is on one today. Jacob, where are you sitting over here?
Well, I'm marrying Christian Kirk because he has financial security. I mean, like, if I'm marrying someone, I want to marry the $84 million man. Like, think of the life we'll lead. I live in Vancouver. Like, I don't know if anyone's checked the housing market out here, but it is wild. Like, it costs approximately like $500K for a Domino's pizza box to be able to shield your head in Vancouver. So I need to have my priorities in check. And so I'm going to marry Christian Kirk, who will put a roof over my head, who will put food in my tummy, who will show me good loving. And then beyond that, like, I'm going to fuck Zay Jones. Like, his demons are well reported. I think he's into some wild shit. And then Evan Ingram, like, I'll kill Evan Ingram, I think. At this point, like, he needs some he's on a redemption path right now. And I think what he needs is really to humble himself rather than just cheap sex on a fantasy podcast.
Oh, that makes perfect sense, and I couldn't agree with that last comment there. Rich, where are you sitting, bud?
I don't know how I can even follow up that slew of analogies from there, but yeah, I mean we're gonna marry Christian Kirk. It's not exciting on any level. We've got you look at Christian Kirk and just kind of he's kind of told us who he is over his career. We've played 4 years in the NFL already. He's a guy that struggles to get open against man coverage. He's fine. Like, you put him in the slot, you get him free releases. He can be kind of a vertical seam guy, but like, he's not going to carry an offense. We saw last year, DeAndre Hopkins got hurt. He had to be the focal point of the passing game, and what happened? A lot of people keep bringing up that, Kyler was playing hurt. Kyler had an injured ankle, came back and ran for 60 yards a game. Kyler was hurt because he was leading an offense that was forced to be generated passing production through a slot guy that can't beat man coverage and a catch and fall tight end. That's where Kyler Murray was hurt, at the end of the season. So, I think it's really tough to ask him to kind of just be like a lead guy for Trevor Lawrence. It's a real bummer for Trevor Lawrence. I saw a lot of people are excited about these moves the Jaguars are making for Trevor Lawrence, but he still doesn't have an alpha. They've just got, it's like an island of misfit toys, right? Like he's King Moon Racer right now, just collecting like stuff from everybody right now and just he's going to have to try to make it work. And I don't know, if he really can, so we'll see what happens.
You have to love that they looked at the Cardinals offense at the end of last year, where their only people that they threw to was a mid-level tight end in Christian Kirk. And they were like, let's sign a mid-level tight end in Christian Kirk, because that offense, we want to implement it.
Why are you guys just discounting Antoine Wesley? First of all,
that's Zay Jones. That's Zay Jones.
So I feel like what they did was they saw Urban Meyer, right, and they were like, "Oh, he built throughout the outside. He tried to build with speed up the field," and they were like, "Hey, we need to do the exact opposite of what Urban Meyer did." But I think people forget about the Doug Peterson offense, right? Like he tries to run these 2 tight end sets. He tries to run things close to the line of scrimmage. So for that reason, and I don't think I've ever said this in my entire life, I want to marry Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram should be a focal point of this offense. All he has to do is actually catch the ball because he can create separation, but he never actually got targets because the quarterbacks never trusted him to catch the ball because he had so many drops year after year after year. So I'm actually going to marry Evan Ingram. I think I'm going to kill Christian Kirk because I think that his ADP is going to go through the roof, and I'm not going to have any shares of him at where he's going to go. So whether or not he's the alpha on that team, I don't think that he's an alpha, but whether or not he is the actual number one on that team or whether they draft a guy to be that dude, I still don't want anything to do with him. And then I'll go ahead and fuck Zay Jones because, he seems like a fun fuck if he can get his shit together. It seems like he might not have done that early in his career, but it's like that chick who's, kind of ugly in middle school, but gets super hot, in high school. That's the way.
Hey. Just because you're good looking, all right. And,
You guys know exactly what I'm talking about.
What role is Kirk? Like, has Peterson ever had a player like? Is this his like Nelson Aguilar? Because Kirk is kind of like a weird player. Like he's a slot receiver, but he's not really a lateral receiver. Like he's a speed slot receiver.
Yeah.
And they kind of did have that in Philly. Like Aguilar was kind of that guy when he played out of the slot. Like, is that
there's Bryce Treggs? Bryce Treggs. You remember Bryce Treggs, don't you?
Who's Bryce Treggs?
No. All right. It's not.
All right, so
I do like ETN, Dave. That's like the one guy in this offense that interests me. And
I love ETN too. I think ETN's probably going to end up being the leading wide receiver on that team.
Yeah, I could see that happening. Now, from the Jaguars to the Lions went DJ Chark. So, with that being said, Amon-Ra St. Brown was a hot topic yesterday. Everybody was nonstop talking about that. So, is
only 6 more months of it?
Oh God, yes, only 6 more months. Then we can wash our hands of
that. No. Don't. Well, look, I don't care. I'll take 6 more months of that than any more fucking tweets about your Mount Everest of fucking spaghetti sauce.
Is that a thing right now?
I don't know. It was,
no, it's just that everything is like who's on your Mount Rushmore for ragu?
Who's your Mount Rushmore serial killers? You're like, oh, we're getting dark now, guys, aren't we? We really need a draft or something.
Hey, the Bills brought an OJ back.
They did.
Oh, God,
they did bring back a juice. Yep. He killed his career. Oh well. Anyway.
Which receiver is the one to draft in your fantasy leagues for Detroit?
Like the good one.
DJ Chark? DJ Chark?
No, Chark sucks. Chark is ass. Okay, he's fine. He's like a decent enough player. Like he's a useful NFL player in the sense that like he'll run deep and he'll do stuff. But like it's pretty telling that he took a 1-year, $10 million deal with the Lions. Like I don't think his market was all that different than like Marquez Valdes-Scantling's, for instance. It clearly wasn't that different than Zay Jones's. I really don't think Chark's that special of a player. I don't know that Amon-Ra St. Brown is necessarily a special player, but he's a darn good player. Like every single wide receiver who has had an 80+ PFF receiving grade coming in, no matter where they were drafted, no matter where they aligned, like all those players turned out to be like studs, not just like decent players, but absolute studs. And even the guys drafted in the mid rounds or later, it's like McLaurin on that list. It's Doug Baldwin. It's AB. It's Tyreek Hill. It's Steph Diggs, Keenan Allen. Like these are guys that like maybe Amon-Ra St. Brown remains sort of a wide receiver 2. I think that's definitely possible. Maybe he ascends to that volume-based wide receiver 1. I have a lot of optimism for St. Brown. I don't know that I'm like as in on him in redraft as I am in Dynasty. We were talking about this with Gretsch last night on the show, where it's really weird that he's a 22-year-old wide receiver who has a higher ADP in redraft than Dynasty. I can't remember the last time that's ever happened before. But I think that St. Brown is good, and I think he's going to be totally fine. And I think Chark is fine.
Love that. So just give everybody a heads up. If you guys are on Twitter, head over to, yes, I do. Head over to youtube.com/fantasy intervention. Once again, that's youtube.com/fantasy intervention. If you guys want to join the chat, we cannot see those questions over there on Twitter. So bring it over to YouTube and bring in your questions for, of course, Rich Hribar, because we are here to answer them. Ooh. All right. So, I mean, with all these players, right, that we have with the Lions. We have Hawkinson, who's going to catch passes. We have DeAndre Swift, who's going to catch passes. They re-signed Josh Reynolds, I believe. We have Amon-Ra St. Brown. They bring in Chark. Is it possible in any way, shape, or form that we are undervaluing Jared Goff? Because he's going to have, if all these players are going to get targets, if all these players are going to get receptions and fantasy points, you know, they have to come from the quarterback, obviously. So is it possible that we are undervaluing Jared Goff? We'll go to Rich on this one.
No, it's the same thing that people did last year with Swift and Hawkinson, and we did it with Eli Manning for a couple of years when Saquon and Odell were getting drafting highly. No, I mean, Jared Goff is, shown us who he is, at this point. He's not a field stretcher by any means. You're just not going to have a lot of juice. Dan Campbell, as a play caller, showed us who he wants to be last year too, right? Like, this team's not just going to, like, air it out and be fun, and the quarterback positions are just too loaded. So, like, I mean, why? Like, if I'm not going to push back on anyone's, like, QB2 flavor of choice in like super flex leagues, but like I'm just not going to shop here. There's really no need to.
Are we playing in any 3 quarterback leagues?
Triple flex, man. Triple flex. I'm telling you,
does Jared Goff finish the season? Are we in a
16-team league?
What was that, Rich?
Does Jared Goff finish the season as their quarterback?
Right now, Tim Boyle's there, right? That's it.
Yeah, but I think they'll draft someone of their first 3 picks. They have.
I mean, they're going to definitely swing on someone. I would assume, whether it be, what do they have, pick 34? Is that what you said?
They have 2, 32, and 34. I think that the most likely pick to take one would be 32, so you get the 5th-year option.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I don't think Goff finishes as their quarterback. And no, we've seen offenses before with like superior weaponry around them, and then the quarterback is still ass because he's still not going to throw for a lot of touchdowns. It's just that he's going to throw. I mean, like Amon-Ra St. Brown's probably going to have 130 receptions because his ADOT's going to be 4 yards.
Yeah, for like 800 yards.
So it's great for fantasy. But you know what I mean? Like really, you're going to see Goff's going to have those games where he went 40 for 63 for 312 yards, which you're like, well, that's not really that good. Or, like the Mason Crosby one, what he have 52 attempts to get to 250 yards last year.
That's the odd thing about Chark choosing this. If he's going to take a prove-it deal to choose Detroit, I mean, you would think you'd go somewhere where you have a shot at a quarterback kind of resurrecting your career, inflating it more than, Jared Goff, who's not really systematically a fit for what
maybe
Chark
he
can
really
do.
Likes Detroit style pizza. He just likes the red sauce on top.
It's a good signing for Detroit, though. I mean, it's a 1-year rental. If it hits, so be it. They just kind of kick the can. They're not putting themselves out here and giving these like ludicrous contracts out. Like the Jaguars in like 3 years, we're gonna look back at us and be like, well, shit, they got to get out of this. Like this is all now they're getting out of this contract. This guy, at least Detroit's just like, well, we'll sign Josh Reynolds for cheap. We'll wait for some guys to kind of come our way. Like you said, they're probably going to take a receiver at 32 or 34 with one of those picks too.
Yeah, I mean,
I think they're 100% going to do that.
All Detroit's really trying to do at this point, or at least all they should be trying to do, also all Jacksonville should be trying to do if they were a sane franchise, is just like put professional players around the players they actually care about, who will be part of the team when they're good, right? Like ideally, like when this team is actually competitive, which should be in maybe like 2-3 years, guys like Swift, St. Brown, Hawkinson, Sewell, Decker, like these are the guys that they want to build around, and you want to put them in positions to seed by just putting professionals around them. And then maybe someone like Chark really does ball out, and then you reward him and you keep him on long term. But yeah, like what you don't want to do is pay for the peak ages of players who are average and then have to like get out of these contracts by the time your team's actually competitive. It's a total disaster.
I mean, we did overlook one signing. The actual most important signing for Jacksonville was signing Brandon Scherf, whatever his name is.
That was by far
that's
the best
actually
signing they had.
I wish they would have just done nothing but sign linemen and then Christian Kirk.
But even that deal, I don't think was good. Like that deal, they paid $17 million a year for a guard. He's a really good guard, but like they need multiple guys. And Cincinnati signed Kappa and Karras for the same total cap hit per year to get 2 starting guards.
I don't care about the price they paid him. Like I'm not looking at that from a real football sense. I could give 2 fucks. I just want an actual good offensive line around him. If they have to pay like their entire salary,
wouldn't you have a better offensive line if they spread that across like multiple guys? Or
they weren't going to do that.
They still could.
Yeah, they still have a ton of cap room, don't they? Somehow.
Yeah, and they could still end up, drafting a guy or spending a draft pick early. But I mean, they re-signed. What was it? Cam Robinson, I believe.
Yeah, they tagged Cam Robinson, and as soon as they did that, Aiden Hutchinson went from like plus whatever to minus $1 million to be the number 1 overall pick. So I
still think
because they're gonna go line with the first pick.
Yeah,
which they should. But it's just going to be unfortunate because they still need another receiver there. But anyway.
All right. So let's, this is a perfect transition.
Still need receivers.
It's just like a bottomless hole. Like they just keep throwing into it. It's like, it's not getting filled. I don't understand.
What do we do? Sign a receiver. What do we need? Still a receiver.
So speaking of offensive lines, I don't know if you read the show sheet, Shane, but we actually, the next topic up was Morgan Moses, right? He signed with Baltimore, and Baltimore needs to improve their offensive line. I think they realize that. I think they spent a couple picks in the draft on it, of course. But I was kind of curious. I decided to dive in and look up some ADPs today, and I looked up J.K. Dobbins. And right now he's going as running back 16. So are we potentially undervaluing J.K. Dobbins, knowing that the Ravens are trying to fix their offensive line, knowing that they signed Morgan Moses, or is J.K. Dobbins right where it should be? Could he finish as a running back 1? We'll go back to Rich on this one.
It's possible he can finish as like an overall RB1, like end of the season if he just stays healthy and accumulates stats. I think on a weekly basis there'll be plenty of volatility here because the main thing with J.K. Dobbins is, I mean, how many passes is he gonna catch? And like, that's kind of why it's gonna be like the bugaboo there, right? Like, because he catch enough passes to kind of get us the floor weeks where he doesn't score touchdowns or have that 50-yard touchdown run. And I still think that's kind of the one problem. The Ravens are interesting. The dichotomy around the Ravens is interesting anyway. It's remember last year, it's like, well, they're going to throw more anyways. And then kind of just like everything got blown out of the water. We didn't really get to see what they wanted to do because everyone died on their team. Even Lamar Jackson got hurt. And like, we really didn't get to see them like at all, like in the course of the season, like function on the level that they kind of envisioned they were going to function. So where does it regress to? Because they're not going to throw as much as they did last year. And even last year, with all the game script and everything went wrong, they were still 21st in the league and, pass rate, above expectation. So it's like, if they go to like 24th or 25th, it's like, still, what are we doing now with like the Batemans and, Mark Andrews ADP? Like, he's the one that you got to look at and say like, oh, for the first time in his career, you take Lamar Jackson off the field and he's just getting highly efficient intermediate targets, right? Like shallow targets under 10 yards. His on target rate on throws inside of 10 yards was 20% higher with Josh Johnson and Tyler Huntley than it ever was with Lamar Jackson. And that's how you turn a good player like Mark Andrews, who's having 4 for 60 and a touchdown, into 8 for 90s and a touchdown, right? And that's how you get that like great floor and it looks amazing. But when we take that away, what is it going to be like next year? And the Ravens are an interesting team altogether because of just what happened to them last year. And, you've got Bateman now and they're going to get Dobbins back. And Hollywood, the first half of the year was amazing. And then he died when Lamar got hurt. Like, they're just an interesting team altogether, I think, to talk about, even outside of just like J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, J.K. Dobbins is in a very interesting spot where we could see them break scoring, potentially next year if everything goes right. So, Shane, where do you have J.K. Dobbins?
RB16, sure. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I look at a couple of the guys ahead of him, and I mean, here and there, I draft him instead of guys, but not over guys, if that makes any sense, only because I'm not going to draft Alvin Kamara and Dalvin Cook and other elderly senior citizens at the position. But I'm not going out of my way to get J.K. Dobbins coming off a serious injury. Like Rich said, we still don't know if he's ever going to he's going to catch the ball. We still don't know if that's going to be completely his backfield. I'm just looking at someone going in similar ADP. Like, I would take Breece Hall every day of the week over him. Like, and not even close.
Well, Hall is just ridiculously undervalued. Like, just
apparently, I don't understand why, but that's fine.
He's a round 5 pick that will be a round 2 pick by August.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, well, good thing I have a startup this week then, huh?
Jacob, where do you sit on J.K. Dobbins?
Yeah, first of all, the RB16's in redraft, right? Like, he's going way higher than that in Dynasty, isn't he?
He's RB14 in Dynasty.
It's still not very high. Yeah, it's pretty close.
I guess I'm a KTC loyalist. They have him at like RB7 or something. Okay. To be fair, like, I think that every running, like, after the top 5 running backs, it's like a block, and they kind of go in all sorts of different orders in Dynasty. I do think his redraft ADP though at RB16 is fine, and based on like how many running backs I draft in the first 6-7 rounds, like, if I say your ADP is fine, I think you're a fucking jam. Like, comparatively, I like Dobbins there. Last year, I thought he was a pretty massive fade in redraft, and he was going in mid to late round 3 prior to his injury. He's now going basically a full round later. You can get him often in late round 4. And I don't really think that makes a whole ton of sense. I understand he had the ACL injury, but ACL injuries are not really what they used to be. It happened preseason. I expect that he'll be ready to rock. And then you also add in the fact that the running back position as a whole really atrophied this year. Like, you look at a lot of the guys that we've loved picking for years from the 2017 class and earlier. You know, Dalvin Cook showed signs of slowing down. Alvin Kamara showed signs of slowing down. Aaron Jones looks to be fully in a timeshare. Zeke Elliott's in a timeshare. All these guys have really backed up the bus. And I don't know that there's necessarily been a rush of guys who have overtaken them. So I like Dobbins. I don't mind betting on talent. I think that it's quite possible that you're getting kind of the same thing you're getting with like a Nick Chubb, but in near the end of round 4, in terms of just a really talented running back who might not be able to hit that 16, 17 points in expected fantasy points per game, but might get there in real fantasy points per game through efficiency, which I know is harder to bet on, but I think it's more palatable to bet on like a late 4 ADP. And it's also kind of a gross spot for wide receivers. Like, that's a spot in wide receiver ADP where usually like that end of like the DJ Moore, Mike Evans, Terry McLaurin, those guys are kind of gone. And you're into like betting on Amon-Ra St. Brown's and Elijah Moore's, Devontae Smith's, like that. That's kind of the comparison. So I don't mind Dobbins. I've actually been drafting him.
So I want to ask the people watching right now, if you're still watching, I don't care if you're watching live, I don't care if you're watching the rerun of it. Let us know in the comments if you guys think that J.K. Dobbins can actually be an RB1. You know, us as fantasy analysts, we have this echo chamber where we start to think a certain way. We start seeing the same exact posts over and over again, and all of a sudden we form the same opinion. So we want to hear from those people who, you know, aren't part of the necessarily like, you know, analyst community. So go ahead and comment in the chat if you think that J.K. Dobbins can be an RB1 in 2022.
Well, I know for a fact last year, me and Scott Connor, co-host on one of my shows, we did a mannequin chill on J.K. Dobbins, and some dude came out and just flamed us, telling us why he was no doubt about it going to be like a top 3 running back. Like, he broke down the math, like all the math checked out, even if I didn't actually agree with any of it. But he had him having like 14 rushing touchdowns, 1,100 rushing yards, and like 400 yards receiving. People could disagree.
Yeah, I like to see that too. So let's go ahead and move on to the other running backs in free agency, right? Get back on track with that. Start out with some of the guys who actually got signed. I think there's only 3 of them right now when it comes to the running backs. We have Chase Edmonds, we have Mckissick, and we have now Raheem Mostert. So let's start out with Mckissick. How bummed are you if you were a Gibson supporter that he returned to Washington after saying that he was going to the Bills? And do you think that he has value moving forward with Carson Wentz? Obviously, after last week's show and Jacob talking about how he literally just throws 100-mile-an-hour fastballs to his running back out of the backfield, and Shane knows all too well.
He attempts to kill them. He thinks that if he murders his running back with throws to the flat, that he'll be able to pass more.
That makes sense. So, Jacob, is McKissick taking a hit by going back to Washington? Or do you think that he would have had more value going to the Bills? And where do you have McKissick moving forward?
Well, I was a little bit torn. So I've just been drafting like just a ridiculous amount of JD McKissick. He's my second most drafted running back on Underdog so far. His ADP was like 214 before all this, which seemed very silly for a player who's averaged about 12 points per game in PPR settings the last couple of years, and then actually flashed like a lot of contingent upside in Washington when Gibson went down in 2020. He's kind of that exact guy that I love on fragile running back builds where it's like, okay, I'll add a couple like upside guys late, and then I'll add a guy like a McKissick, who's that safe floor to give me, 8 to 9, 10 points in a pinch as RB2. Until they went and decided to make just a ridiculous decision and trade for Carson Wentz, I would have said Washington was the ideal place for McKissick because you already know how he'll be used. He'll be used quite favorably. And Scott Turner has trusted him as like a quasi lead back when Gibson's gone down. So I love the spot. I mean, I was really excited about the Buffalo landing spot for him. Oh man.
You were
the way
excited?
that they, what?
You were excited?
So excited. I mean, the way that they spread things out, right? And I understand they haven't thrown a ton to running backs, but like that's still a short area passing game. Like they throw a lot to Cole Beasley. When McKenzie was in there, they threw it a lot to him. They use Diggs a lot as a short area option. McKissick is just a way better pass catching running back than
I don't trust
Singletary
that
is.
offense, but I don't trust that offensive coaching scheme to know what the fuck to do with any running back because they wanted to start Zach Moss over Devin Singletary. And Devin
But
Singletary's
McKissick isn't really a
1,000 times
running
better.
back. Like that's the beauty. Like he's a utility guy in the slot and out of the backfield. And like the way that Buffalo runs that offense, like when they're rolling, right? Like if you like in some of Singletary's best games, like if you think about like the Tampa Bay game, or even the Chiefs game early, like they're not really using Singletary the way you use like a running back. It's like they're using him as just like a fifth receiver, essentially, as kind of like a swing option. And McKissick just fits that style of offense so well. I understand why they wanted him. I could see exactly how he was going to fit in. I thought he was going to catch like 80 balls in Buffalo. I was pumped. So I'm a little bit soured on the fact that he stuck with frickin' Wentz, who can't throw to a running back to save his life. But I still think it's fine. As someone who's like not very in on Gibson this year, I kind of got a few laughs off of the quick turnaround. So shout out to the Gibson people. That's tough.
Well, Buffalo's shown us they want like this type of guy in their offense. I was talking to Josh Norris about this earlier, and they were in on Etienne. Etienne thought he was going there. He said he thought he was going to be drafted by the Bills at 30 last year, and the Jaguars took him. And then this year they try to sign McKissick because there's one thing when you don't throw to running back. So they didn't have a player like McKissick in the offense either to throw it to. I mean, you're talking about a guy the last 2 years. He's played 180 snaps lining up in the slot, and he's played another 143 snaps lining up an actual just outside wide receiver as well. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of what they kind of chase. This draft class has a ton of satellite backs. I don't know if they try to nibble on someone like Cordell Patterson or anything like that. But Buffalo has kind of showed us they're looking for this type of player. So unfortunately, that is a terrible signal for anyone that wants to chase what Devin Singletary was doing at the end of last season.
Yeah, I mean, he's a competent pass catcher, but he's not dynamic. Singletary or McKissick really is. Like, I think he's an underrated football player. He's a dynamic player in the pass game.
Yeah, that's the biggest takeaway is that Singletary's fucking dead. Like, clearly they don't even like him.
The thing about Devin Singletary is we've already seen now through a 3-year sample is he's only good when he is in the game as the 3-down back. Like, it's a complimentary player. He's offered us nothing.
And I'll go against Grant. I know Jakob hates him because Jakob hates football players that can produce when given an opportunity. He just likes spreadsheets. But Singletary's actually good when he's given the opportunity. Just give him the fucking opportunity. But here's the good thing:
we'll be able to trade a rookie.
We'll be able to trade a rookie fourth for him.
But I think that's just what running backs are, right? Like if you're telling me like if I give this running back 18 touches, he'll be good. I'm like, all right, yeah.
No, we saw there's a few of those guys that it's like where we were counting on them, like, oh, this is a smash spot. We're starting them, you know what I mean? And I forget the Detroit running back that did that to us, and it was like 15 for 40, and you're like, never mind.
Yeah, no,
I think Singletary is like a decently efficient rusher. And he's been their like receiving back by default for the last 3 years. But his competition in the receiving game has been the corpse of Frank Gore and then Zach Moss. And Singletary just isn't a natural receiving back. He wasn't in college. His yards per route run in the NFL sucks. And I think that they really do need that element. But I think that Singletary might still retain the early down work. And then Moss, I don't know if he'll just be like caught or put on ice or sent to Mars.
They're done with him. Like he's probably not going to be active next year. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it cost them more to cut him than
I just saw something like that. Yes.
Way too much talk about Zach Moss. I'm sorry.
So Chase Edmonds now.
He was what, a second rounder on a rookie? He can't be costing anything. What did they gain by cutting him?
Yeah, that's why like they're better off just keeping him.
I think they just
next year.
I think they were saying that he was on the roster bubble. Like they weren't talking about cutting him right now, but they were talking about cutting him if there was more competition brought in, that he would be on the bubble to actually earn a roster spot.
Yeah.
So Chase Edmonds lands in Miami with Raheem Mostert.
One spot.
Is Miami out on running backs now? I believe so for the NFL draft.
I don't think so.
Oh, no.
Neither of those contracts. Chase Edmonds' contract signaled to me that they're looking for a real running back still. Signing Raheem Mostert, who's just like,
it's a very temporary contract.
He's just an old guy that knows, 30. He's just an old guy that knows that offense, right? So every time you see any head coach really go anywhere, they bring along at least one of these Raheem Mosterts with them to the new team to be like, help teach the other players the offense and stuff like that. But no, they're still, I pray that they're still in on a running back.
I love Chase Edmonds. Sorry?
I strongly believe that this offense, right, they don't ever draft running backs early. And they've been known to outside of Trey Sermon, of course. But, essentially they want to find these late round players, these late round running backs, or these undrafted running backs to bring in. So I think that it could end up being a Band-Aid that's put on the team, at least for this year, for 2022, as they try to find players that fit their offense. So Jacob, how do you feel about this? Do you feel like there is going to be a running back brought in the draft? Where do you have Chase Edmonds?
I love this for Chase Edmonds. If anyone followed me on Twitter, I said the two most likely signings, they were going to sign Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert. So I feel I'm soaking in my glory today. But no, I love this. Like Mike McDaniel looks for the exact same things that I look for in running backs, which is like, I think why I feel like this mind meld with these wide zone teams. They're both perfect scheme fits. They're both guys that are more before contact and after contact players. They're guys who hit the edge really, really hard. They're super explosive. And then Chase Edmonds also brings in some pass game utility. So I love the spot for Chase Edmonds. I'm not too worried about Mostert. I think the most important role in this offense, and you really have to look like this offense, this wide zone scheme does not look at running backs the way that a lot of other teams do. The size profile is different. What their strengths are is different. And to me, the most important role in that backfield is the speed back, and you need multiple guys that are able to play it because it's unique. And so I think Edmonds is going to get the first crack. I think Mostert's behind him, and they're going to bring in someone to play more of the power role on inside zone looks in the draft. I think Zamir White is a fit. I think Rashad White could potentially be a fit. And I think Jerome Ford could potentially be a fit. I expect them to try and find someone in like round 3, round 4. I don't think they're going to be in on like Breece Hall or Kenneth Walker early, just because I don't think that's how they operate. But I do think they're going to draft a guy in round 3, round 4, and form this kind of 2.5-man committee. They'll probably be a really efficient and effective running game and probably drive some fantasy managers a little bit crazy.
Shane, what say you?
I guess Chase Edmonds all of a sudden became a good football player. He's an 11.5 point a game player. That's what he's been in throughout his career. He can't win a job, can't keep a job. He's going to be fine there though. I mean, I'm sure he'll give you some spike weeks. He's going to be a top 40 running back. I'm not overly excited by him. I think I was talking about him last night. If he's my running back 3, I'm fine with that. You know what I mean? If he's my running back 2, I'm probably things have not gone well for me in life. If he's my running back 4, I feel even better. Well, I'm just guessing. If he's my running back 4, I feel even better. I think he's a good player. I don't want to undersell him. I'd say he's better than Raheem Mostert. But 12 points a game, I think he might. If he's lucky, maybe he'll hit 13 to 14 points a game. He's no James Conner.
He's one of those guys that I want to start. He's better than Connor. I mean, here's the difference between like NFL football and fantasy football. Like Connor's just like a very like fantasy friendly running back in the sense that he does like what fantasy managers need. Like he's able to withstand volume. He's able to catch the ball out of the backfield. Teams short yardage and goal line situations. Like I don't actually think that he adds a lot of value on his carries for a football team because he just kind of plods around. But like I understand.
He's an excellent blocker, just for the record. He's one of the best blockers at the running back position in the NFL.
Cool.
I knew you'd care about that, Jacob. Rich, is Duke Johnson dead at this point? I know the organization wanted to bring Duke back.
What?
Is Duke Johnson dead?
Why are we talking about Duke
Ian on the show? Is Ian Harness on the show?
I just thought we had to bring it up.
With a guy like Edmonds, who's been like good every he's been like anytime he's touched on football, just like those guys, like when the cost is already cooked into those guys, I hate those guys. When they're cheap, I love them. I don't know where he's gonna fall in this. I don't know how seriously people are doing. So I was like completely out on Chase Edmonds last year when we were doing the song and dance them, because he's just a guy that, you know, when you look at like functionality, like coaches never like this type of player enough to make them fantasy friendly.
But Mike McDaniel does. Like he acts like
he could.
Like McDaniel and Shanahan are the only coaches.
Fantasy.
But no, like McDaniel and Shanahan, like they actually do feature like 205-pound 4.4 guys who like don't break a lot of tackles but hit the edge fast.
But even
they actually feature these guys.
Even Mostert with Shanahan, they yanked him inside the 5. They pulled him.
Yeah, they did.
So like, what are we going to have
Wilson
here? Like, what are we going to have?
We're going to have Zamir White, goal line back Zamir White.
And that's going to be the main problem. I mean, you look at Chase Edmonds, and he has 1 rushing touchdown inside the 5-yard line in his career so far. And it's because and it's not because he's not capable of doing it. It's just no coaches give him carries there. It's the same thing. Like we did this with Austin Eckler last year, right? It's like these coaches have this stigma that's non-existent, like in real life. Because Christian McCaffrey is the same way. Like coaches are like, I have to take out my 205-pound guy.
Like efficient goal line running backs ever, and he's small.
It's just opportunity based. Like it's not like I have to put Lorenzo Neal in, you know, or the old TJ Duckett. Pull Warwick done for TJ Duckett.
TJ Duckett.
Yeah. Well, the same thing. Warwick done with TJ Duckett, like that great backfield. But so like what ends up happening in Miami? Does Mike McDaniel have faith in giving him those carries? We don't know. It's like we're flying blind, right?
I'm interested to see where Edmonds goes. Like I've been drafting a ton of Edmonds in like early best ball because he's going like round 11, which is like where I always want to smash these guys. If he moves up to like round 7 or whatever, I'm going to say thanks for my closing line value and I'll never draft him again. But if he I kind of like this Mostert signing because that might keep him down a little bit. Like if he stays in like round 9, round 10, then I'm going to be pretty interested because I think this backfield will be fantasy friendly. It just might not be like fantasy consistent. I could easily see Edmonds as one of these guys who, like when I'm doing FFPC teams, where that's my RB2 week 1 and week 2 while I wait to find my actual RB2 off waivers.
And this is a team that still has a long way to go, even with the scheme fit of what they're doing up front. Like this offensive line is a disaster. And the scheme can only do so much. We saw with the Jets last year. They were able to kind of get to like just be like adequate, but they still have struggled a little bit in the offensive line. It's trending upwards, and we're probably going to be like in a year with that with Miami, right? Like they're not going to fix this thing probably in an off season. It's probably going to take a year or two for like Mike McDaniel to really get the pieces he wants on the offensive line. Because this offensive line last year, I mean, this offense was 30th in rushing EPA. They were 31st in yards per carry. It was a rough unit because they made a bunch of dumb draft picks in the front. I mean, this is a team too. Like we look at Miami and all the draft picks they accrued. Like, man, they have really not done a lot with them.
No.
Not a lot.
It was a couple of years ago. I was like, wow, this front office is really, really good. And then they actually picked the players, and you're like, well, never mind. Maybe you guys could go back to the dynasty strategy of just trading for future picks and talking about how good your roster is going to be in 3 years.
Yeah, well, the front office also does pretty well with, veteran depth pieces across the offensive line. But let's go ahead and move on to Cedric Wilson because a lot of people are saying
are you guys seeing the chat, by the way, the new contract that just came out?
3 years, $60 million, Chris Godwin.
That's good and bad. Well, I guess with Brady signing a long-term contract, that's great. But let's talk about Cedric Wilson. Should Cedric Wilson actually get drafted? And is this more impactful for Jalen Waddle? I mean, are you taking a shot on Cedric Wilson towards the end of your drafts, or is this something more where like, hey, Waddle probably won't play as much the slot, could see some downfield targets, could actually be more impactful on offense? Rich, how you feeling about the Cedric Wilson move? Yeah,
I mean, this feels like a token free agency, like playing a guy off of a spike year, probably a little more than he's worth. Especially he's coming from the highest scoring offense in the NFL too. And then when you listen, we just got done talking about this scheme, right? Like they just signed Alec Ingold too. Like this team's always gonna have a fullback on the field, right?
Yep.
Like almost always. So how much 3 wide receivers are we gonna see when they're in 22? Is it, is it gonna be just Waddle on the field? When they're in 12, is it gonna be, Devontae Parker and Waddle? Like it's hard to really get excited about Cedric Wilson because one, like he's like a good real life football player, or was at least for one season. Add some functionality in terms of getting some targets for Jalen Waddle we want, but also like he just came from the highest scoring offense in the NFL and like still wasn't really usable except for like the weeks where the Cowboys had nobody else playing. So what are we really latching onto here for himself? I think it's more of what he does for some other people.
If I have a
Can you
takeaway
spell
from Wilson,
Kyle Juszczyk without looking it up, Rich?
Let's see. I'll close my eyes and try it. It's JUSZCYK.
Yeah.
I think you nailed it. Actually,
You got it right.
You got it.
Jesus.
I think that the takeaway is for Mckissick actually, because Wilson's a slot only player in my opinion. I don't think he can really play flanker. Right. He certainly can't play X, and I'm not really sure Waddle's an X. So I think like Parker's your split end, Waddle's your flanker who can move inside. Wilson to me is a slot only. I don't know what they're going to play. Are they going to essentially play 10 personnel looks? Because Gesicki is not an inline tight end to me. And so I would say it's a downgrade to Mckissick, because if they were going to run 11 personnel with him as an inline player, I'm less interested than when he was playing as a proto slot wide receiver. So I'm not in on Wilson like really at all, because to me, he's a guy that robust running back drafters should be drafting as like a round 17 pick. As someone who's usually drafting running backs in 16th, 17th, 18th round of drafts, like I just don't know if I'll take a lot of Cedric Wilson, but he's the kind of guy that like I think you would take in like the range that people took like an MVS last year or something like that.
Shane, how you feeling about Waddle at this point?
Waddle, I mean, I was happy when Mike McDaniel got there anyway, because I knew that he's going to see a lot more looks outside of the slot. He's going to see probably more targets downfield. I don't care about Cedric Wilson. Someone put it in there. It could be Albert Wilson. I don't give a fuck. He's not good enough to matter. He's not good enough to matter to anyone.
Yeah.
Mike McDaniel he wasn't going to use Waddle out of the slot exclusively anyway. So whatever. Like he's too smart.
Cedric Wilson,
I went to Yale.
Ayuk.
No, he's not. Cedric Wilson is Cedric Wilson. You know what Cedric Wilson was? He was fun, and I was hoping he was going to stay with the Cowboys, and then I was going to draft him in like the 23rd round, and then I get 2 starts out of him next year when either Gallup or CeeDee Lamb can't play. But now people are going to fucking draft him in the 10th round. I can already see it, and I'm going to laugh at them and throw things at them.
All right, so if you're still with us, if you're still watching, of course, I don't care whether it's live or whether it's the rerun of the show. Make sure you go and let us know in the comments what you think Jalen Waddle's stock is. Did it go up or did it go down or did it not move, bringing in Cedric Willis? And yeah, stick around because we have Deshaun Watson.
That's how much we should care, is that you just called him Cedric Willis. That's how much we should care about.
Oh, did I say Willis? Wilson, sorry.
It doesn't matter.
You talk about Willis?
Yeah, but no, we do have Deshaun Watson coming up. Before we get on to Deshaun Watson, let's go ahead and talk about Mitchell Trubisky, because people are getting crazy out there saying that he's not an upgrade on Ben Roethlisberger, which I don't know if you watched football or not last year, but Ben Roethlisberger was absolutely horrendous. So what are the fantasy implications for the Steelers moving forward? And is this something that we should be excited for the Steelers, or just more like, meh, it is what it is? We'll start with Jacob on this one.
Well, I'm not excited about Mitchell Trubisky. That seems like a really aggressive word.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's better than Ben, because Ben essentially was like a construction crane last year in terms of his ability to just like dropping balls, moving around slowly, rotating, getting in the way. I don't think that Trubisky is going to be worse. I think it's possible that he's like worse for fantasy, because Ben just runs this like uniquely Ben offense where they don't do motion. They don't like run the ball. They don't do anything. They just kind of get to the line and he's like, all right, everybody just like run some drags and I'll throw it to you. Like, it's kind of like when you play Madden and you just hit the no huddle and you just hit like run last play over and over again on like mesh. That's essentially the Ben offense. And it's pretty fantasy friendly, especially for Deontay. So it's possible maybe it's not like an upgrade in that sense. But I do think it's an upgrade for the offense. I think that Deontay Johnson's still a wide receiver 1 in all formats, especially a dynasty, in my opinion. I think it can only be a positive for Claypool because Ben just does not have a functional arm to be able to pass to Claypool. And Trubisky is been a guy that's been willing to throw it to A-Rob while like draped in coverage repeatedly. So I think it can only be an upgrade for Claypool. And the nice thing is it's a pretty inexpensive deal. So I don't think this precludes them from drafting a quarterback at pick number 20 at all.
All right, Shane, what you got, man? Or we can go to Rich.
I don't know. I mean, look, Jakob already covered it, really. Like Claypool, it couldn't have gotten worse for him, right? Literally, it couldn't have, unless they threw me out there, and then it might be a little bit worse than it was last year. Is Najee Harris going to see 100 targets this year? Probably not, 94 to be exact. So that's probably a little worrisome if he's your, I don't know, what, your dynasty 2 running back, dynasty 3. But you knew they were going to upgrade a quarterback. They didn't have a choice, right? Like they literally didn't have a choice. Ben retired, and you can't start Mason Rudolph. Like that's just, someone tried to kill him the last time he played football. He was that bad. So
Cable's crying because he definitely believed that they were going to go with him.
I was.
What's with that guy?
I was hoping for.
I don't know what the plan is. It's like.
Oh man, I thought you were still saying more, Shane.
No, I was done, man. I'm not saying that.
It's really like Jacob said. It's just about just them not having to function in this offense. It's what Ben limited them to do. I mean, only the Buccaneers had fewer dropbacks with throws outside of the pocket than the Steelers. They used play action on just 18% of his dropbacks. That was 36th in the league, and he was also 4th in the league in shotgun rate. So they're just going to have a lot more bootleg stuff. Matt Canada, I was hoping this is where Mariota was going to go because, he needs a mobile quarterback to run the system. Yep. Trubisky's fine, same, whatever. Maybe they're not that far, right? A stone's throw away from each other. But I was hoping for this was a Mariota retribution spot to have these types of players around him. But yeah, it's just going to be a different looking offense. It's just not necessarily like it's going to be like statistically a better offense.
Well, I mean, Mitchell Trubisky needs play action fake. He really does. And he had such a higher completion rate when operating off of play action versus not. But I mean, honestly,
every quarterback in the history of football has a better completion percentage off of play action.
That's not always true, but a lot of them do. However, Mitchell Trubisky's variance is tremendous in terms of like his completion rate when using play action and then when not. But more so, like, I think that this was important for the Steelers to do long term, because of the fact that they needed an offensive line so bad. And if they would have traded away draft picks to try and get a top-end quarterback, they would have been screwed. I would have been fine with Marcus Mariota. I think that would have been a great play, either way. But on the other end, like, Trubisky's success is solely based on like his protection. So Trubisky struggled tremendously when teams didn't blitz, but still got pressure on him. And he ended up throwing 7 of his 8 interceptions while under pressure, and 3 of the 7 were targets to Allen Robinson. So when he's trying to force feed the ball, when he doesn't have multiple options on that offense, Trubisky is going to struggle, and he always has. Having Claypool, having Deontay Johnson, having whether they bring back Juju Smith-Schuster or they end up drafting somebody, because I believe they're going to do one of the two. I think that's going to be crucial to his development, and I think that he could end up playing a significant role, and I want him for fantasy as a, like Rich said earlier, a QB2 of choice, where you can actually grab him, and he could be closer to a QB1 with his rushing upside. That offense that we were seeing under Matt Nagy was not good, and the time that it took for plays to develop is not the system that Matt Canada runs. So I'm excited for Mitchell Trubisky moving forward. I think that he could be a fantasy asset, and I think he could be a steal in drafts, especially in 2 quarterback leagues. I'm trying to grab him where I can. Mm-hmm. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to Watson, right? The topic of the night. Pretty much everybody's been sitting around twiddling their thumbs, waiting for Deshaun Watson to pick a spot. We've heard rumors that he prefers Atlanta, and then all of a sudden, recently, there was a report that came out that said that he was the one that wanted to go to the 49ers. And then all of a sudden, you have the Browns coming in who, have some assets to make it work. We don't know if he wants to go there. You have Atlanta. I mean, you have the Carolina Panthers, who I think are in the best position for Deshaun Watson moving forward. I mean, they have 3 great receivers. They did sign what's his name from the Rams, their guard, to come in to improve that offensive line.
Corbett.
Yep, Austin Corbett. I think that have a very good offense for Deshaun Watson to fit in, and a very young developing defense. And then you have the Saints, who I don't know what the Saints would look like if they traded away all their picks and whatnot for Deshaun Watson. So, Shane, we're going to start out with you since you're our landing spot correspondent.
I mean, Michael Thomas would, 247 targets next year? So that would be pretty cool, I guess.
Hey, Will Fuller's coming back, baby, wherever he goes.
Yeah, Fuller's a package deal.
So I had him.
Cool.
Not even a joke. Like literally, like put that in pen. Like wherever Watson signs, Fuller will sign for 1 year and $6 million. That's happening.
We don't even know if Will Fuller likes the guy.
Yeah, we do. No, they're boys.
They are?
That's been reported on. Yeah, they're tight.
Well,
That's white.
It's tight.
They are. And then Josina said that like she was like many wide receivers are like waiting for Watson there, and then it was like especially Will Fuller, and I think she put like some form of emoticon too.
Like a eggplant, because that would seem
not that
like
one,
a bad idea. I'm just saying that seems.
I think it was a syringe. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, for selfish purposes, because I love DJ Moore more than life itself, I want him in Carolina.
Dennis Moore deserves
this. Oh my God!
He's Billy Needles.
Jacob. Shane, did you say Carolina? You like that spot? Or
Yeah, Carolina, just because I'm DJ Moore. I want DJ Moore to get actual high volume targets, high quality targets to see what it's like. Because I'm pretty sure he's a wide receiver one. He just hasn't had basically the quarterback play to support it yet. If he ends up what do you call that place? New Orleans, fine. I mean, Michael Thomas will be a wide receiver one, but it'll be volume based. It'll be 212 receptions for 1,100 yards. I just think it'd be a lot more fun if he's in Carolina.
I don't think I've ever seen Deshaun Watson throw a 5-yard slant. He normally just runs.
I need him not to go to New Orleans because I want to keep drafting Michael Thomas where he is.
Oh,
yeah,
I'm
fine.
I want him in New Orleans because I have legitimately 16 dynasty shares of Michael Thomas. He is by far, it is not even close. He is by far my most rostered player. I have tried to trade for him in literally every single league. I just think he's egregiously undervalued right now.
But if he had Watson, he's going to go in like probably be.
Why do I care? I already have him on every one of my teams. like if anything,
I want to keep getting him. Don't you want him on more teams?
I can't. I have offered like at this point, like I have him on over half my rosters. Everyone that I don't have is my buddy Ian or just another person who refuses to trade them to me. He's my most owned wide receiver in Dynasty. Moore is like not that far behind, so it's kind of a win-win. I hope he goes to New Orleans for my own selfish reasons, just because I really want like a massive Michael Thomas season. A, for my wallet. B, to own my haters on Twitter who have been chirping me about my Michael Thomas exposure for like over a year now. I'd love to own them. And I think Atlanta would be fun too, because Kyle Pitts would go to the absolute moon. So I'm pretty okay with like all the realistic options. I think my like spidey sense, and by spidey sense, I mean I've been reading Twitter when I should be doing legal work, says that he'll be going to either Atlanta or New Orleans. I think that like whenever there's an option that involves Cleveland or another place, sorry, Rich, people usually take the other option. So I don't think Cleveland's really in the mix. I think that Carolina is just kind of a shit show of an organization.
We don't want him handing the ball off to Nick Chubb anyways.
No, I think that Carolina's just kind of an S show organization. Like they seem frantic. They seem desperate. They haven't been able to build a consistent culture. Matt Rule seems like a total jamoke. Like I just don't think
we're talking about culture. I mean, but don't even get into the culture conversation. They're trading for a guy that basically was about to go to prison last week.
Well,
so I don't care.
I think none of these. I don't think teams should be doing this. Like
none of these front offices are like New Orleans is basically just committing fraud every year. I don't understand how they do it, but every year,
David Tepper, he does not care.
They are $100 million over the cap every year, and then right about now they're like, we're fine. And I'm like, all right.
For the record, like I as a fan, like I don't want my team trading for Deshaun. Like I've written about this, my articles there. Like I really, really like it makes me like honestly uncomfortable, like how quickly it's just become like this sweepstakes. Like from a personal perspective, I don't like it at all. But like I get why we have to talk about it for fantasy. I do. I definitely think like the human side of this should be talked about more. I just think like if we're trying to get inside of Watson's head, which we can't, where he'll go, it just sounds like it'll be Atlanta or New Orleans.
Why would
I'm gonna enjoy my Kyle Pitts or Michael Thomas exposure regardless of my.
Wouldn't you like to be tied to DJ Moore and CMC?
I don't know if you know this, but Deshaun Watson doesn't play Dynasty, so he actually doesn't care about DJ Moore as much as the rest of us.
He knows Will Fuller's coming wherever he goes. He's fine.
He's got Billy Needles on the way.
Reeves talked about it the other night pre-show.
I would like to sell like my last 3 Terrace Marshalls if he went to Carolina. To get rid of
Rich talked about it on our that we did pre-show about David Tepper, the money that he has. It was pretty insane. He's the richest owner in football right now. And for him, being a business owner,
he has $6 billion more than Jerry Jones.
$6 billion more. It's pretty insane that the money that he has, and for him to let Deshaun Watson walk, I don't think is real. I think that they're using him saying like, "Oh, I want to go to Atlanta. Oh, I want to go to New Orleans." Almost like a point to drive up the price for Carolina, because I think Carolina is almost a lock to get him, and I might be on the opposite end of the spectrum when it comes to the popularity vote out there, but I think that he's a lock for Carolina.
Well, here's the thing. That said the trade's already agreed to. Like that's the only way that he was meeting with these teams.
The gross thing about it is he gets the pick too.
I know.
Yeah,
it's Watson's choice at this point, not the test.
I comped it to Jesus Shuttlesworth, but earlier, like it feels like he's on like this campus-wide tour. And like people are just like giving him whatever he wants right now, and that it's added another layer to this whole like thing of just like it's like this almost like this film, like right, like it's just like this. It's it feels grimy, man.
Yeah, it's 100% just ridiculous about how he's getting treated right now. It feels like the decision with LeBron James, but
truly, yeah,
it is what it is. All right, so let's go ahead and close out this episode and just bring up a player who's unsigned that you would like to see sign that you think could see their fantasy value rise. This has a big thing to do with like best ball leagues. Like, hey, like I've been drafting this guy, for the past 3-4 weeks now, hoping that he would land with a good team. And, you just hope that he goes there. So we'll start out with Jakob, because I know that he probably has somebody that is, undrafted.
I know Jacob
right now.
I can guess Jacob's guy.
Sure.
Let's
Melvin Gordon.
Oh yeah, I love Melvin. I have 55% Melvin in.
Do you really? Are you serious? Like,
I have like kind of the same take that a lot of people. So everyone's been split, right? For now months, we've all decided like there's 2 camps on this Melvin situation. Either there's the camp Melvin's leaving, or there's camp Melvin is staying. And I've been generally camp Melvin's leaving, but I look at it the opposite. It's like, okay, why would I bet on the guy who's already like a 1-2 turn pick to become a late first round pick? Like, why would I put all my chips on that? Like Javonte, it's like if Melvin stays, Javonte's probably like a round 3 pick. If Melvin leaves, he's like still a late first. So I just feel like that's kind of only downside. Now, if he leaves, I'll go draft my Javonte after he leaves. I'll chase him up the board. But to me, the one with like the far more profitable range of outcomes is like Melvin Gordon, who's currently like a 12th round pick. If he is like RB1 for the Buffalo Bills, then he's a 4th round pick. Like if he's RB1 for the Chiefs, like he goes like, to me, he's the one who has just like a way higher range. Like he's kind of the same bet that James Conner was, right? Like Conner just by remaining in Arizona, like just massively increased his value. And so, yeah, Melvin played really well last year. And in fact, he played so well last year that I think a team is going to pay him to not be Javonte Williams' 1B. Like I think a team should pay him to be their starting running back. Worst case scenario, whatever. Worst case scenario, he signs either in Denver, in which case, like, I don't know, like he's still going cheaper than he was going last year and in somewhat of a similar situation in which I don't think that it's that awful for his value. Or maybe he just goes to some dog team that's willing to pay him and he's like just a really uninspiring, like round 6-7 pick. But
Houston or something.
Yeah, and that's totally possible. But I don't know. I just think Melvin is like he's way overqualified to be a number 2 running back at this point. Like he's always been a serviceable running back. Last year was one of his best years, I thought. Like why won't a team give him like a 2-year, $14 million deal, with like $4 million on a signing bonus spread across the 2, something like that. Come in and ball. Like to me, he's kind of the same bet as like a Fournette, really, but he's just way cheaper. I think Melvin Gordon's actually a better running back than Leonard Fournette. He just didn't have the blessing of being in Tampa last year.
I was really worried at first because of James Conner and Fournette both look like they're going to be on the market. Like as they're basically they're both 2 years younger than Melvin Gordon. And, they were going to draw a lot more interest. And Connor immediately re-signs because Steve Keim's just been itching to pay another running back again. And he's able to do that. And now with Brady coming back, you would assume that maybe he lures Lenny back. So now Gordon might have more of a market, than the veteran market outside the free team. I was a little worried that oh, wow, he might almost be driven back to Denver. But now he might actually have a little more opened up for him. So
my only fear is the Badger connection with Russell Wilson. I wonder how deep that runs.
God, that's painful. That'd be painful to see with Javonte Williams. I think they're out of the woods when it comes to that. So, Rich, 2 questions for you. Who is your player that you've been drafting, hoping that it'll hit? And also, how did you know Jacob's player? Because that was pretty crazy.
I haven't drafted one team yet this offseason.
Okay.
Since we've been gone, I've bought a house. I'm in the process of moving. It's an absolute nightmare.
Wow.
I'm working still throughout this process. I've got my oldest son started high school baseball. So I've just been trying to just live life for a little bit, but
the shots are fired. I feel shot at.
But out of any of these guys, I'm always a little more pessimistic on any of these. I don't think good players are typically available in free agency. They're typically available for a reason. But obviously, I want this Watson domino fall because I want to see where Jameis goes. I want to see, does Jameis get a chance to start? Does he go back to New Orleans? I want to see whatever happens with Rashad Penny. Who believes what happened the front 10 games of Cordell Patterson last year? Juju, does he have anything left? Or is he just on the complete Randall Cobb trajectory of we chased this one season for a decade and just never got anything the rest of his career?
It's gonna be so sad.
Yeah, it's just all those are pretty interesting. We'll see what happens. Antonio Brown. Let's just get Antonio Brown back on our team.
Please.
God, stop.
He's so good. He's insane, but he's really good.
Yeah. But no, and then trade wise, is Saquon going to get traded? That's kind of the one thing I've been waiting on the whole time. Because Buffalo,
maybe Buffalo.
I guess it's back open now, right? It's kind of rekindled. So
yeah, JD McKissick was blocking.
Because I can't I've seen say, and I get the people that are out on Saquon. Fine, I get it. You've washed your hands, but the dude's 25 years old. He still has all this pedigree. I can't quit. I just can't bury him. He's in Dynasty. He's the RB. I don't know. He's in the teens, right?
Yeah, way too cheap. Thank you. Because Shane fights me on this. Shane is the anti-Saquon, and I keep jamming Saquon all the time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm mixed. I'm in between. I'm hey, if he falls to me where I think he's valuable.
Look, if he's the RB13, I'll scoop him up. But if someone's trying to convince me to draft him as the RB5, I'm gonna yell at them. No, thank you.
Shane, who are you waiting on since you're a landing spot?
It's been Juju. It's always been fucking Juju. I just need him. Look, I need him to move to a different offense, right? And to suck. So I can finally be all right, it's him. It's not me. You know what I mean? And then I can be I'm done with him. I'm moving on. Because until he moves on from that Pittsburgh offense, Rich said, I'm always going to be chasing that second year he had, and I'm always going to tell myself, no, you don't understand. You don't remember Juju in his prime when he was a 22-year-old wide receiver in Pittsburgh. It was nothing like it. 1,400 yards. And
Shane's going to be 70 in 10 years from now, still talking about Juju.
Yeah, so I want to be
going to tell my kids this was Juju Smith-Schuster meme.
I need it to end one way or the other, right? I need him to go somewhere and be good or go somewhere and be bad. And I frankly don't even care which one it is at this point. Just one or the other. And I want to be done with it.
This is going to be me at when Tony Pollard signs somewhere and then has multiple ACL tears, but then eventually ends up leading the Chiefs and rushing in a divisional playoff game at age 30, like Jerick McKinnon just did. That'll be me. It's Finally, I have been proven right.
On 90% of your teams, he finally shows up in Dynasty Leagues. All right, so I know you guys are going to hate mine, so I'm just going to say it, and we're going to end the show. But
Trey receiver that earns 12% target share. Do you like?
Maybe Traquan Smith.
Traquan
Smith.
Yeah.
Yep. So Traquan Smith's been trapped in this offense without the proper players or the proper quarterbacks to be able to deliver him the ball. He finally got an opportunity with Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston got hurt. You don't have a deep ball with Drew Brees. You don't have a deep ball with Taysom Hill. You don't have a deep ball period going to him, but he is the Michael Gallup of the NFC South. So I want him to end up with a team, Buccaneers just re-signed Rashad Perryman, so maybe I have to reevaluate that. But I want him to end up with a team where he can actually be a deep threat with a quarterback who has an arm, and that's my person. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get out of here. Rich, where can we – we can talk about it for a second, Shane, if you really want to. But I have a feeling you're just going to be like, no, I don't want to talk about it.
Very cool.
You're going to be like, why are we talking about this?
Can I talk about Deontay Hardy?
Who?
Deontay Hardy, the actually good wide
Deontay
receiver
Harris
in New
Hardy.
Orleans.
Yeah,
formerly known as Deontay Harris, changed his name to Deontay Hardy. Top 10 in yards per route run, top 10 in PFF receiving grade. Yes, Dave.
This was from. Let's see.
Yes,
this was from 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, if Deshaun Watson does go to New Orleans, and Rich is sad because he can't get any more Michael Thomas, just jam Deontay Hardy shares. I've drafted Deontay Hardy as my last wide receiver in about 80% of my best ball drafts this year.
You went from Marquez Callaway to Deontay, huh?
Every year it's a new Saints receiver apparently. The Marquez Callaway thing is the Marquez never Traquan. The Marquez Callaway thing is really sad because I had a good thing going when it was like just me on this island. It was just me and Alfred Fernandez pumping up Marquez into the wind, taking him in round 18, and it was peaceful. And then he turned into Randy Moss against the Jaguars in one preseason game. And I woke up and all of a sudden he went in round 7. And I didn't ask for this. I feel it was like in The Godfather. I was like Marlon Brando. All of a sudden he's going ahead of good receivers. And it's like, I never wanted this for you. I felt bad.
Yeah, Deontay Hardy is he's such a good player. He has the problem, like we kind of talked about Chase Edmonds a little bit, is the dude's 5'6" and 170 pounds. So an NFL coaching staff's like, we'll only put you on the field for 18 plays. That's all we're gonna let you play. You're like, we might let you play
Rondale Moore.
Yeah, but that's the funny thing is he never gets to be a full-time player because he doesn't fit any archetype these coaches have in their head. But he's been productive anytime he's gotten to play.
Jacob, I cannot wait to torch you on Rondale Moore in 2023.
I like Rondale Moore. He's not as good as Rashad Bateman. I'm sorry.
It's not even close. You guys can check it out on Trophy Smack YouTube page over there. Oh,
I love Tony, dude. I love Tony.
You didn't like Tony last year.
No, I hated him as a prospect, but I'm a fucking Bayesian, so fuck you.
Jacob just changes. He's whatever's cool.
I did not like Tony as a prospect.
And now it's too late because now you have to play. Now you have to pay for Kadarius Toney. You could have had him in the second.
Not really.
You can
get him pretty cheap. I had last year going into. Actually, I honestly had a little bit of Toney last year because as much as I hated him as a prospect, he went round 1 and the entire fantasy community was just like, we don't care. We're not drafting you anyway. So as much as I hated Toney, I actually had 4 or 5 shares at the 2.8 or 2.9 in rookie drafts anyway.
God, that's crazy.
And then so then I just got kind of lucky when he looked good. And then he got hurt, which was great because it really suppressed the price. He's still pretty cheap. And I've been drafting him. I've been trading for him in Dynasty. He's up to all of a sudden in my top 5 most owned wide receivers. I've been getting a lot of young Joka.
All right, let's get out of here, Rich. Where can we find you, man?
Sharpfootballanalysis.com. All off season, anything I do, we take the paywall off all season. So just I'll just be posting stuff up there. And Shane hates my Dynasty tiers, so go check those out.
Shane, what you got, man?
Nothing. It's quiet week. Yeah, nothing. Just I'm on the Twitters, Hey, people watch the show every week.
You read an article for Trophy Smack.
Yeah. Oh, I wrote an article for Trophy Smack. That was a week ago.
Yeah, well,
talk to us about it. What did you say?
I said Carson Wentz is not the answer in Washington. I really went against the grain there. I went against the grain.
Do you think he's an answer enough to play 75% of the snaps? Because I would like a second-round pick.
Look, I'm gonna tell you, I held my breath last year as an Eagles fan, and when there was just on the CSN here, because every city has a CSN, that every week they were just giving us the fucking updates, and it was like, and it was like week 13 or 14. They were like, look, guys, based off the projections, if they continue to play at their pace of play, it's locked up. It's done. He could die tomorrow. We got the pick. Fuck that guy. That was my interpretation of it.
It's really funny to me how this show has evolved with Wentz, where it's like he was Shane's quarterback, then he gets traded to Indianapolis, then he's my quarterback. Shane's hoping that he plays a certain amount of snaps so that my team can give Shane's team a first. Now he gets traded to Chase's team, and now I'm hoping that he plays enough snaps for Chase's team so we can get a pick. Eventually, we're gonna find a fourth co-host. Actually, Rich can join the show. He can get traded to Cleveland.
He's gonna go to Cleveland.
And then
I'm not a Browns fan, so.
Oh, you're not a Browns fan? Why? Who do you root for then?
Never. I grew up a 49ers fan, but we talked about this on Shane's show. I've been ruined. Twitter and this whole experience of this journey, my life covering football, has ruined me from being a fan of any team.
Okay. Well, whatever. He'll go to some team.
I'm right there with you.
He'll go to some team, and we'll have that person on as a co-host, and he'll get traded for a fourth and another fourth, and then that fourth turns into a third if he plays 70% of snaps. It's gonna be this chain of Carson Wentz forever.
Oh, I got one thing. The DLF Dynasty Draft Guide will be dropping at some point. It's finished. We're just waiting on some back end stuff, computer geek stuff that I clearly don't know anything about. All I know about is the content, and that's done. Just waiting for the nerds to push it out to the public.
Really, the nerds? That's where you got to go with that. All right, Jacob, where can we find you?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at ff_RTDB, where I'm talking shit about Myles Gaskin. You can find me in the Bulletproof Discord, where we've recently welcomed in 2 new analysts, David Gautieri and David Wilsley, a.k.a. the Running Back Whisperer, into Drew's patron group. You can also find me on the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast, where we had a 2-hour and 20-minute podcast with Ben Gretsch yesterday. That was an absolute blast. And then Billy and Tom earlier today did a bonus episode with PFF's Austin Gale. So that's awesome. We're rolling, and we'll have Josh Larkey on next week, the 22nd. So that's super fun. I also got back to writing to start March after taking February off. I wrote the first article in my series, Thinking About Thinking, last week. So you can check that out about sort of the general theory behind analytics-based prospecting models. And then I also wrote an article about Deshaun Watson and how we talk about him in a really gamified way that's uncomfortable. I talked about some of my experience in advocacy work with gender-based violence, and specifically my work legally, and sort of what this exactly means when a grand jury does not indict someone, and what it doesn't mean, Adam Schefter. So you can definitely check both of those out. I'll probably have another article that I'll be writing this weekend. I'm just not 100% sure on what yet, but I'll tell them to publish it.
Yeah, and don't forget, you have the debates, right? Over there at youtube.com/TrophySmack. It'll be coming out within 2 weeks or so. It's not. It will be about 2 weeks or so, because we actually have a schedule that we got to put out. But about 2 weeks or so, it's Trophy Smack, or youtube.com/TrophySmack. They debated CeeDee Lamb and his value moving forward. And it was kind of a crazy twist, because it's normally an analytical argument. And Rich, who I feel like is the king of analytics over there,
I wouldn't qualify anything I do as analytics.
I've heard you make analytical arguments on many occasions, but the last piece was so funny. You guys go subscribe over there.
Is this Rich's David Gettleman term? Is he analytics is one tool in the toolbox? So.
It was so great. Yeah. I cannot that was my favorite episode that we've done so far, just because of the turn that it took. It was amazing. So go check it out. youtube.com/TrophySmack. It should be up.
Failed the name swag index. I did.
This next episode that we have coming out, we just did one today between Trav and Dave that just took place. But about a week from now, we have who was it? We have Fabiano and Bob Harris. So that should be coming out next week. Debating? It's going to be amazing. Whether you should draft injury-prone players and whether it should matter in your early draft process.
Well, I know.
Why didn't you have a doctor on? You should have had a doctor as one of the.
That was the topic they picked, and if you're watching and you're into,
who's on the correct side and who's on the wrong side.
I will let you decide that. Make sure you leave a comment on the YouTube page. Anyways, you guys can go find me over there at ff_intervention on Twitter, and make sure you guys hit subscribe and like before you get out of here. We have all this rookie content coming out. So we partnered up with Thomas Tipple, and Thomas has been giving us these combine workouts, right? Combine workouts have been going crazy on our channel. Like they're hitting like hundreds of views. It's our most watched stuff that we've had on our channel for YouTube. And, we kind of just kicked it off this past year. So it's been a lot of fun getting this up and running, but he's doing great work over there. It's these 30 second to 60 second clips where you can check out some of these combine workouts if you didn't have a chance to check them out already. So make sure you guys go check them out. And of course, hit subscribe on the channel. Thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you all for letting us intervene with your fantasy football life. We're out.